this one verse, I'm going to be doing a sit-down edited video, which is the mid-year book freakout tag. I'm going to be just answering the general questions. I'm going to include the links to the people who created the tag in the description box below. I'm also going to be using this as an opportunity to follow up on my New Year's book tag goals I set. So first question is, what is the best book you've read so far? Those are Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson and a graphic novel, Black Star by Eric Anthony Glover with art by Ariel Jovianos. Year of the Witching was just phenomenal. It was gory, it was creepy, and it was just like the details were exquisite. Like there's just so many images of like people getting torn apart or people bleeding out that are like burned in my head because of how Alexis Henderson described them, and I just loved it so much. It was a book that made me realize that like I really like atmospheric horror. And if you're interested, the book club I'm in, the Soul Powered Afrofuturism Soul Reading Group, is hosting a book discussion of that on, I believe it's September 25th at 1 p.m. EST. We are very lucky that the author has agreed to join us for a Q&A. So I will include the link for the Eventbrite in the description box below. It's a free event, but the Eventbrite makes it easier to distribute the Zoom link to people. And then Black Star was a book that I got a review copy of, and I just adored it. There's just like so much suspense in the story, and the characters are so cutthroat, but like just for very different reasons. Like one of the characters is very malicious. They're out for revenge. One character is just like very honestly cowardly, very focused on self-preservation. They just clash in these ways where I was just like on the edge of my seat trying to figure out what they were gonna do. And just like every time I didn't think the characters could get any worse as they did. And then next question is, what's the best sequel you've read so far? And I only really read, I haven't read a whole lot of sequels this year. Master of Jinn by P. Djeli Clark won hands down. This is a sequel to A Dead Djinn in Cairo. It's in this like steampunk early 1900s Egypt. It's about this woman Fatma who like wears suits and works with the like magical bureau who maintains relations between humans and the supernatural creatures who have like recently been thrust onto Earth. I just think that this book did what a sequel needs to do. I think it maintained the spirit of the original, and I think it also like expanded the world and built on the lore in a way that was very interesting. So we see some characters from the original return. Fatma, the protagonist, is back. CT, her girlfriend, is back. We learn more about the angels who appeared in the original story. We see more of the gulls. We see more of the jinn. I was just very happy with this book. It gave me the sapphic content I needed. I loved the adventure. I loved Siti and Fatma's chemistry. I just was very pleased with this story. Next question is new release you haven't read yet but want to. So there's a few. There's A River Called Time by Portia Newland. I won a Kindle copy of this in a Goodreads giveaway. It's basically about this future England called Dinium, where chattel slavery didn't happen. And it's about this man who can astral project, and he gains access to this like mysterious gated community for the wealthy. I have questions about Dinium. I'm wondering if this is like a reference to something that I just don't know about, because there was also a bizarro London called Londinium in the short story Dimini by Eugene Bacon, and I'm wondering if there's like a reference or something that I'm not getting. Then the other one is Dr. Marvelous Jinn's Odd Scholars by B. Charisse Moore. I pre-ordered this one. It's a YA historical fantasy set in the 1920s in the United States. It's about this Garviate magician who offers 4 African-American teens the chance to visit her magical amusement park and win it and like scholarship money. I think more comped it to Charlie's Chocolate Factory. I was like intrigued by the synopsis, so I'm looking forward to reading that. And then the last one is Library of the Dead by T.L. Huchu. This is an adult novel about the Scottish Zimbabwean girl who can talk to the dead. I just haven't heard much about it. I'm generally intrigued by books that seem to like fly under the radar. Next question is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. So I'm looking forward to a number of titles. There's The Undertakers by Nicole Glover. This is a sequel to her adult historical fantasy, The Conductors. I think she said that they're kind of like standalones, like it's in the same universe and it's the same characters that they're following, but the plot points from the first book aren't super going to impact the plot points in the next book. It's set in Reconstruction era Philadelphia. It's about Hetty trying to figure out who the serial arsonist is and stop the fires that they're setting. Then another one I'm looking forward to is Flowers for the Sea by Zin E. Rockland. This was a novella that I pre-ordered. I forget what the comps were, but I know the one that caught my eye was that it was comped to, I think, Sorcerer of the Wild Heaps by Kai Shanti Wilson, which is a very lush, beautifully written, very gay novella, which I just really liked, and so I was excited to see more writing like that. Oh, I think the other title it was comped to was The Deep by River Salmon, which I also really enjoyed. So I'm just excited to see what comes of this. And I just really like stories about water and the sea. I think the sea is like open and like scary and just very unknown to us. And I think that makes it like a really great area for storytelling. Is another novella that I pre-ordered, and this is How to Stay Alive by Shungai and Jerry Kagunda. This is from Neon Hemlock Press, who published Stone and Steel, which I had enjoyed. I generally like this press. I think they put out good work. I think it's like a time travel, time slip type story. And another one is Skin of the Sea by Natasha Bowen. This is basically about black mermaids. That's really all I know about it from the cover. I don't really need to know much more than that. It's a young adult fantasy. And then the last one is When the Reckoning Comes by Latanya McQueen. I think I heard about this from Miss W.C. Reader. It's like a horror about this black woman who attends a white friend's wedding on a plantation. And I'm trying to read more horror, and Miss W.C. Reader got an ARC, and she spoke very highly of the book, so I'm looking forward to giving it a read. Next question is biggest disappointment, and this was very easy to answer. It was very easily Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. I ranted about this in a wrap-up, so I'm just going to try and keep it short and sweet, but basically the book is over like 500 pages, like around 500 pages, and for all that length, I felt like not a lot happened. Like I felt like it was just very slow pace, and I just didn't feel like my time was well spent. There's just like wasn't a lot of exploration of like what I like in fantasy. One thing I didn't mention in my wrap up was that the fight scenes are good. I feel like I should give credit where it's due. The fight scenes are interesting, but for me they weren't enough to carry the book. Like I'd heard people saying there's found family here, and like I felt like that was a stretch. Like I felt like other people in the troop cared about Tao, but like I felt like Tao didn't really get too close with anyone else because all he thinks about is training and fighting. Like I thought his relationships with the other characters were very surface level. I think like the most interesting relationship he develops here is with his mentor. But even there I would have liked, more space for that. So that's that. Like it was something where like I read the synopsis and I had like my reservations about it, but I was generally hearing good things. People were generally liking it, so I thought I'd give it a read. And I buddy read it, so that's why I like stuck it out instead of like DNFing. And like for me, I think I probably should have just like gone with my gut, and either not picked it up or like DNF'd it. This is a book that like has an audience. Obviously, it has people who like it because it was published independently, and then it was so popular that like Orbit decided to pick it up and reprint it. So like obviously there's an audience for this type of book. I just wasn't the audience. So next question is, what was the biggest surprise for you? And in terms of reading, I am pleasantly surprised by how much I'm liking poetry collections. I read Consumed, Reduced to Beautiful Gray Ashes by Linda D. Addison, which I really, really enjoyed. This was like a horror poetry collection. It is kind of a landmark poetry collection in that it was like the first book by an African American author to win a Stoker Award, which is like a big name horror award for books published in English. In terms of the poems I liked in that one, I just generally liked the ones that were like fiery and dramatic. Those were the ones that like stuck with me the most. Those are the ones I found myself reading out loud again and again. And another one that I read that I really enjoyed was Madness Like Morning Glories by Doris Davenport. And this is a poetry collection about life in this small Appalachian town. All the residents are African American. Each of the poems is narrated by a different character. Some of the narrators are dead, some of them are ghosts. And I just really liked how the story is told. There's sort of like some storylines going through where like each person will talk about like a different event or like a person, but they give like a different angle, a different perspective. So you can kind of piece together a story from that. But also sometimes you don't really know what the truth is. And I thought it was a story that had like a lot of heart to it. There's obviously like a lot of love the people have for this town, for their way of life, for their culture, and also like it was very funny to me how some of the characters contradicted each other, how they viewed certain things. Some of the characters are like very opinionated, It's also kind of creepy in parts. There's like some root worker beef going on. When I first realized that some of the narrators were dead, that definitely took me aback. And there's a quote that I think really sums up some of the collection, and it's "Don't mess with the sacred, it will get you." But I really liked it, and I wasn't really sure what I was going to think of this going in, so I was pleasantly surprised that I really love this collection, would consider buying this collection and would definitely reread it. Next question is favorite new author, either a debut author or just new to you. I would say Alexandria House for that one. She is like an indie romance author, and I've only read one book by her, but it was like a lot of fun. The book was Let Me Love You, which was a recommendation from Ashley of Bookish Realm. It had like the amount of heat that I wanted from a romance. It was funny, it was heartfelt and tender. It was just like a very enjoyable, very entertaining story. Next question is newest fictional crush. And I didn't answer it last year because I don't really get crushes on fictional characters, but I feel like it's like kind of not fun if I don't answer it. So I'll say that in terms of like characters who I thought were like most physically attractive, there's Terrain from The Unbroken. Wonderful arms. I'm sure her back muscles are exquisite. Like, she's just a gorgeous woman. Definitely not personality wise. She's way too dependent on Luca. Like, I feel like she's the person where you like go on the first date with him, and like within like 10 minutes of you guys talking, she starts talking about her ex and how much she misses her ex and how great her ex is. And then another character who I thought was like fine as hell was Chancellor from Far Sector. Okay, so here's one picture of him in this panel. And then I'm probably going to find one of my favorite comic covers of all time that has him on it, and I'm kind of upset that it wasn't the variant cover I got. I'm trying to see if maybe I can find a poster version of it because I would like it larger. But like the skin, the locks, the lips, like the facial hair, the jewelry, just like his fashion sense, is like everything about him. He's beautiful. He's so fine. And so, just like physical attributes aside, if we're talking about like people I'm like actually factually compatible with, maybe the sister from The Killing Moon. I think she just really like takes people as they are and just goes like rolling with it. And so I think we might get along. She also has like a very wry sense of humor. So I think we would definitely be in good company. And then maybe Benji from The Conductors. He's not blunt. He's kind of, I think he wants to be blunt, but the person he's partnered with is like avoidant of certain things, and so they kind of like go around each other. So I don't know like how compatible we would be, but like I think personality wise, we're similar enough that we would get along. Okay, so next question is newest favorite character, and I have two. One is Big South / Everett from Let Me Love You. He is the main love interest. We hear him rap for a little bit, and honestly, I think that was what sold me on him. There's a scene where he's like working on a rap, and another rapper is going to feature on the song. And he sets up his verse and he plays it back for the love interest Joe. And Joe's like, this is weak. Like, your feature is going to walk all over you. You have to redo this. Like, it's not good. It's not as good as your old stuff. And he's like, oh, okay. Let's redo this then. And he comes back in and he has a verse where he specifically references the love interest. And you could just tell that he like pays attention to the things that she says. And he's like kind of playful. It just made me laugh. I'm realizing that I don't read a lot of books that make me laugh. And so I'm like really valuing those books and those characters that have a sense of humor to them. My next favorite character, very different, is Howling from Sorrowland. He's like a little 3-year-old kid. Howling is a twin. His other sibling is Feral. And if I remember correctly, Howling is the one who's born first. He's a little louder than Feral. He's more like temperamental. I think he needs more assurance from his mom. He's kind of an instigator, but also he's just so sweet. He was just like such a believable, sweet little kid. Next up is Book That Made You Cry, and that is 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. I'm hosting the Broken Earth read-along. I'll leave the link in the description box below if you want to join the Discord, if you want to get plugged in. There's a lot of things that upset me about the 5th season. And like it's weird on a reread because like I remember being really upset the first time I read it, but this time around my emotions to a lot of things were blunted. I think it's because the first time I was just kind of like experiencing it, and this time I'm like moderating discussions for it, so I'm more trying to like break things down and understand it. Maybe that's what's taking me out of it, but there was a part where I still cried this time. It was when Demaya goes to the fulcrum and there's an incident where she's being bullied. And I actually cried for one of the bullies. And you'll have to read the book to figure out who and why. So, next up is a book that made you happy, and there is Master of Jinn by P. Djeli Clark, because it just brought me out of a reading slump, basically. And the other one is Root Magic by Eden Royce, because that has a subplot where dolls come alive, and that's something I really liked as a kid, and there just wasn't a lot of that featuring black dolls or black children, and so I really liked how that played out in this middle grade fantasy novel. Next question is favorite book to movie adaptation. It was this Chinese movie, Nuzha. It's a children's movie. Nuzha's a deity, a lot of folklore about him. And this is my first time hearing about him, so it was like interesting to get to learn more and like do some digging. Basically, the movie is an adaptation of 2 chapters from Investiture of the Gods by Xu Zhangling. The competition for this category wasn't very thick, because I don't watch a lot of like book to movie adaptations, but like even if it was, I just really loved it. There's like elements of tragedy and like these like cursed friendships and stories about destiny and magical objects, and I just really love the character design for Nuzha. And watching it, I kind of realized that I had seen references to Nuzha in like other cartoons I'd watched, and so like that was cool to understand. And I just really liked the movie. I thought it was solid. Next question is, what is your favorite review? And I think that if we're talking about like my tightest reviews, After the Rain and Conductors, I like got in, said what I needed to say, kept it concise. I think like those just feel like very complete. But I think I'm also very proud of my review of Saruland, because that was one where like I think my review was shakier, but I had a segment where I contextualized it within like River Solomon's other writings, and like other people seem to really enjoy that. And I also feel like that's one of the things I do well, because I'm someone who like I like to read an author to completion. So I think that like seeing patterns and like connecting patterns is something that I'm like good at. And so it's just nice to be able to bring that to a review. The next question is most beautiful book you bought, and that is A Spectral Hue by Craig Lawrence Gidney. It's about haunted folk art and a color purple. I just think the cover is nice. Many people have commented that the cover is nice in the haul that I did of it, so it just seemed fitting. So the next question is books you need to read by the year's end. I'm just going to use this as a chance to follow up on some goals I set. So in the New Year's book tag, I said there were a couple books I wanted to read by the end of the year. I read Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. I read Searching for Sycorax by Kenitra D. Brooks. I'm going to shelve those. But I still need to read A Spectral Hue. I still need to read White is for Witching by Helen Oyeyemi. And I've been reading The Famished Word by Ben Okri for over a year now. I started it, I think, February of 2020 for Seiji the Artisan Geek's Black Literature Challenge. And I'm in the home stretch. I have 100 pages left to go. And so I think I can easily wrap that up this year. Then for the book club Solar Power that I co-mod, I have to read Deathless Divide by Justina Ireland. And then I also want to read Chintu by Jennifer Nansubuga Mukumbi this year. And so I'm buddy reading that with Erica of the Broken Spine and trying to get through that. Also, I said I was going to read Changeling by Victor Laval in 2020. Did not read that yet, so I'm trying to read it this year. There are a couple reader's copies I have to get through. I did not realize I had acquired so many because I thought I was going to take a break from those, but I always say I'm going to take a break, then I'm like, oh, I have so much free time, let me fill it, and then I end up overextending myself. So, outstanding review copies I have to get through. There's Conquest by Celeste Hart, This Time by Ozza Davis, Tale by YesOGD, Can You Sign My Tentacle by Brandon O'Brien, No Gods, No Monsters by Cadwell Turnbull, and Within These Wicked Walls by Lauren Blackwood. Conquest is like a science fiction fantasy, and I really like that merging of genres. This Time is kind of like a paranormal, like indie book. Tale is like I don't know a whole lot about it. I just know that it's supposed to be using like mysticism, and that intrigues me. Can You Sign My Tentacle is like this horror poetry collection, and I've really been liking poetry recently, so I thought I'd give that a read. No Gods, No Monsters. I don't really know much about this. I just like Cadwell Turnbull's work. I enjoyed the lesson, so I'm figuring I'll enjoy this. And Within These Wicked Walls is like a Ethiopian-inspired Jane Eyre retelling. It's supposed to have fantasy elements, so should be interesting. I won it in a Goodreads giveaway, so I need to get through it. And then I had a larger goal for this year to read 4 nonfiction books and 4 horror books. So I'm trying to like switch up like the genres that I read, and I'm done with horror. I read Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. I read Box of Bones, which is a graphic novel. I read Saarland by Riz Solomon, and I read How to Dispatch a Human, which is a short story collection by Stephanie Andrea Allen. For nonfiction, I read Searching for Sycorax by Kenitra D. Brooks, and I read Unapologetic Guide to Black Mental Health by Dr. Rashida Walker, and I read In Intimate Detail How to Pick, Wear, and Love Lingerie by Cora Harrington. I think I messed up that subtitle. And I just have to read one more. And so for the extra nonfiction title, I'm going to read What Are You Doing Here by Lena Reyes, which is a memoir about a Black woman who like does music writing, and she went to a lot of like metal shows and punk shows, and it's about her writing about her time as like a culture critic. So that was all the mid-year book freakout tag questions, and now I'm going to follow up on my New Year's book tag stuff. So I was planning to read 24 new books and reread 5 books this year. So far, I've read 31 new books, and I've only done 2 rereads. And in terms of the rereads, I'm going to have like a couple more because I'm going through that Broken Earth read along. And so then I don't know what my 5th reread's going to be. And I said I wanted to do standalone reviews for 50% of the books within my channel's focus that like I own. And that's not happening. This is not this year anyway. I haven't really had the will to do standalone reviews. So then I had some non-book related goals. I wanted to pitch 1 essay to 4 paid publications, and I have like drafts for 3 essays that are in various stages of completion. I had one about like publishing trends. I had one that was a close reading about like justice in fantasy novels, and then I had like one that was a close reading about empathy and bearing witness. Right now I'm focusing on the one on publishing trends. I'm still editing the pitch, but I do have a couple places I want to pitch it to. And one of the places, their submission period ends this month, so I will hopefully be sending that. So I will be sending that out shortly. This place I'm pitching to will be a stretch because I have not published anywhere before, but it would be a dream if they picked it up. I think some of the stuff that I'm interested in writing about is going to be considered more niche, and so I think having like a solid like editorial staff is like very important. And I very much trust the editorial team of this place I'm pitching to, and that they would like help me mold this piece into something great. So like I really hope that they're interested in working with me on that. And my other goal was that I wanted to be able to do 2 makeup looks like on eyes without looking at a reference. So the 2 looks I picked were Halo and Cut Crease. And I really haven't made a whole lot of progress on that. I got an eyeliner pen because the wand really was not working for me, and I can definitely do it a lot tighter with the eyeliner pen, but it still looks rusty. And in terms of like the eyeshadow looks, I'm still working on having those memorized. I really have not been practicing, so I need to just do that. And then my 3rd and final goal was just generally being more honest, because I guess we're making progress on that goal. It was very nebulous. It's going to be hard to do follow-up on that. In terms of reading books that I've had for forever, I've only read 2 books of the ones that I own. For this question, I pretty much just listed all the books I own, digital and physical, that I have not read yet. And I've only read 2, and it's closer to like 30 or 40. And in the time since I made that goal, I bought somewhere between 10 and 20 new books. So there's that. That goal is always going to be far, far away and not going to be realized anytime soon. Alas, my final goal was to be more collaborative, and I think I'm doing that. I think I've generally been better about like not stressing myself out on doing like solo content. I think I've done better about like the connections I've made and the friendships I've made. Like deepening those and talking with like booktube people about things like outside of books, outside of reading. I have done a couple curated discussions this year, which is nice. I would like to try to do more. Like I have ideas for more, but like I think with these discussions there's always a question of like, am I the person to host this? Like do I have like the knowledge, and also like do I know enough people to talk about stuff, and also like do I even have questions, you know? Like sometimes I just have like an idea and it's like I don't really have the questions yet to flesh it out. And it's like an interesting discussion. So I think I'd like to do like maybe like one or two more discussions before the year ends. I have gotten so much bang for my buck out of StreamYard, like between the read along sprints and like doing live wrap ups, so I'm happy about that. And I think doing the live wrap ups has been nice because I get more of a chance to like talk to people in time. Like they're definitely more scattered and off the cuff than when I do like an edited wrap up. Weirdly enough, I did a decent amount of author interviews in like 2020, and I don't think I've done any this year. So I'm hoping to do like two or three before the year goes out. So that was my mid-year book freakout tag. That's how I'm doing on those goals I set in my New Year's book tag. How are you doing on your goals? Please comment down below if you want to talk about anything I mentioned in the video. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye.